welcome to Commander Central, episode 315, and today we're going to talk about some of our favorite cards from Streets of New Capenna and the Streets of New Capenna Commander decks. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Max and Chris, how are you both doing today?
Better than
Wonderful.
last week.
You're both 1 week further removed from hospital visits, and everyone's feeling much better?
Correct.
Yep.
Chris, did you play in the pre-release at all for New Capenna?
Yes, I did. I played in one pre-release. I won my first 2 games, and then for the third run final round, I was just kind of over it. So I looked at my opponent. I'm like, "You can just have the win. I'm done playing." And he's like, "What? Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. Like, I'm just done playing for the day." So
Nice. Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting format, I didn't think, necessarily. I went 3-0. I had a kind of a lousy pre-release kit in terms of like value or even commander cards. Like I got nothing I wanted in my pre-release kit. I got no cards that were worth anything. And I got a ton of really good commons and uncommons that were great in that environment. Like just really efficient, creatures that are never going to get played anywhere else, but like in that specific kind of format, they're really, really good. So I just ran over people. Like they just couldn't keep up with how fast I did well despite having a kit that like got me absolutely no toys to bring home out of it. But that's always a little bit fun. So, everyone enjoys winning.
yeah, mine wasn't great by any means. It was a nice control deck that did a lot of that, the convive mechanic. Like the whole deck was built around that. So
Okay.
It was pretty cool to play it that way, but it was a really boring deck, and I went to time every round because I was playing a control deck, and I'm like, yeah, let's just not do this anymore.
Yeah, my games were all super fast. I played in the first round against a kid who was like 10 years old too. I think his name was Riker.
Yes, that is Christopher Maloney's son.
Okay, very nice. So that was fun. He was actually a pretty good player, and it was fun playing against somebody young and like super excited to play like that too. So that was a good experience as well. But yeah, I had a good time. The new Siege Rhino, the mono green one, I forget what its name is, was probably the best card I had, like in terms of a rare. I think it was the only rare I might have even had in my deck. And multiple times I got to bring it back, like when someone would kill it, and there was some, I think it's Fake Your Own Death is the black spell. Multiple times I got to Fake Your Own Death and bring it back. So like it ETBs, gives me life, it dies, makes me a 4/4 Rhino token, and then it comes back into play and gains me more life, and it's back. It was disgusting.
Ugh.
So that at least felt pretty good. I did that against our shop owner, I think twice. I think I did it in each game we played. So yeah, it was a good time. So if you out there in listener land want to reach out to us and tell us about your pre-release or anything fun going on in the world of Commander around you, how'd you go about doing that, Chris?
Well, you can find us on a multitude of social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. You can find us on YouTube by searching CMDR Central, and you can also find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also head over to patreon.com/CMDRCentral. Check out our reward tiers, such as joining our community to play virtual EDH and chat with everybody.
Thank you very much to all our supporters, both those on Patreon and those who just like and upvote and listen to the show. We appreciate you all very much, so thanks.
Yep, I want to give a shout out to 2 of our Patreons too, while we're at it. A one Craig DeBevic and a one Kat, I think it's Wendell is how you pronounce her last name, or maybe it's Weddle. Let's see, yesterday, according to Craig, he told me this, he got down and he proposed to Kat.
Oh, nice.
And she said yes.
Congratulations.
So, he said that he did it standing on the coast of Maine overlooking the Atlantic. So I just wanted to give him a big shout out, congrats, and, good happy things are to come.
Congratulations to Craig and to Kat. I will talk about this one brief story from playing at the shop this week. I was playing with my friend Justin. He has a Brea deck, and it's a relatively fair Brea deck. Brea can be, a little bit oppressive or strong, but his version is not. There's no combos. It's just doing artifact stuff. We sat down and we're playing with somebody who we hadn't played with before. And I think it was his first night in the shop. So we had kind of the Rule Zero conversation. We're talking about it, and Justin's like, it's not, that Brea deck. It's there's no combos. It's relatively slow. And we all backed him up. We're like, yeah, it's a fair Brea deck. It's fine to play against. It's not that big of a deal. Oh, okay, all right. Literally, Justin opens like land, Soul Ring, mana rock creature. Is what he starts out with and then like next turn put on cranial plating or something, dropped cranial plating, equipped it, and hit me for like 9 on turn 2. And it isn't that deck, but man, for that moment, did it really look like he was playing that deck.
Man, if I was that new guy, I would have been calling you guys out.
We did.
What are you doing?
No, we were all like, no, really, it doesn't. Like, we were all very apologetic. Like, it doesn't normally play this way. And he made sure he hit me and the other player first before he like hit the new guy because he felt bad about it. But we had all like, it was funny just after all of us like, no, it's fine. It's relatively low power. It's not that deck, and it blew up. It was insane. So yeah, that does sometimes happen. We went out of our way to make sure the guy knew it wasn't intentional, and we all got stomped. It wasn't just him. Dustin, he stomped on all three of us. But yeah, sometimes crazy things just happen. What do you do?
I still say that Soul Ring does not exist in any of my decks.
I honestly can't think of the last time I've seen you. Yeah, you've not pulled it in forever when I played against you for sure.
No, and never. Like, I'll even when I'm going through my deck list, like swapping out cards, I'm like, I should just cut this card because I never ever see it.
It doesn't exist. I'm playing a 99 card deck anyway. All right, so we are going to talk about some cards from Streets of New Capenna and the Streets of New Capenna Commander decks. We haven't done many set reviews lately, and this isn't going to be really a set review. We just decided to just pick some cards we thought were interesting to talk about. I don't know, why we chose this format, but there is some cool stuff there, and rather than like just talk about a bunch of stuff that, hey, this will go good in this deck, but if you're playing that deck, you probably already know it. We decided to just talk about some cards that we personally kind of like and talk about why we like them. Mm-hmm. Max, why don't you start us off here? What's the first card that pops out at you that you just find really interesting and want to talk about from Streets of New Capenna?
The first one I want to talk about is from one of the commander decks, and it's called Smuggler's Buggy. This is a 4-mana artifact vehicle. It's a 5/5. And it has Hideaway 4, so when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And then when it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. If you do, return Smuggler's Buggy to its owner's hand, and it has a crew cost of 2. I kind of like this vehicle. I like the Hideaway mechanic. I think it's a cool way to get more cards out of your deck, especially with the whole returning the buggy to your hand if it does damage to a player. So I'm kind of looking forward to playing this card.
I mean, we've got a real good history with artifact vehicles with the word smuggler in the name. not been a problem at all for anyone. I will note this quick about Hideaway, and I don't have the actual errata in front of me, but there was a change to Hideaway made recently. Originally, I believe part of how Hideaway worked is like part of the mechanic was it came into play tapped. It wasn't a big deal.
I thought the lands did, didn't they?
Yeah, well, it wasn't actually technically on the land. They didn't have Hideaway that did the thing, and the lands came into play tapped. It was just part of Hideaway meant the thing came into play tapped.
Oh, okay.
But since they've been putting Hideaway on other things that they don't necessarily want to come into play tapped, like enchantments where it doesn't matter, or maybe they don't want your vehicle to come into play tapped too, there was an errata to Hideaway. So Hideaway no longer just by default makes things come into play tapped, and they then errated the lands to all say these lands come into play tapped. So like functionally it doesn't really matter, I guess, for anybody, but I thought I would at least mention it. It doesn't change anything, I don't think, really. But anyway, once upon a time that was part of the Hideaway mechanic. It made things come into play tapped. So if you did happen to know that, which I didn't, but if you were someone who did, that's no longer a thing. So like Smuggler's Buggy doesn't come into play tapped just because it has Hideaway on it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I like this one too. I don't play a lot of vehicles. I just don't. I don't have a reason not to, but like I just haven't found many that like work with what I want my deck to do. But I like Hideaway a lot. I like the Hideaway lands, at least the ones that were good. It's just a cool, fun mechanic. It's not overpowered, but it's very useful. I've run a couple different things with Hideaway in a couple of my decks, so I'm glad to see it come back here on this vehicle.
Yeah, there's a bunch of the enchantments within the regular set too that have I think there's one per color that have Hideaway on them. So I mean, it is pretty cool to see it come back.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Chris? What's one here that you want to talk about?
Well, I didn't listen to Wizards and I took the drugs, so I like I need the Halo, man. I need the Halo Fountain. It's a really good card, but I'm not going to talk about it because everyone talks about that card. I think it's probably the best white card in the set, but we'll go to a different one. Public Enemy. This is an uncommon enchantment aura that reads, enchant creature. All creatures attack enchanted creature's controller each combat if able, and when enchanted creature dies, draw a card. This is 2 colorless and a blue to cast this card. I always liked the goad mechanic, and this ability right here within blue, which blue doesn't have a whole lot of things like this, to force your opponents to attack someone else, I think it's cool. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but I think it would be awesome to slap it on someone's indestructible creature and then force all your opponents to attack that player. and just be like, "Mwahahaha, what's up?"
Well, and even if they don't have an indestructible creature, slap it on their tapped creature. So at the very least, that creature can't get killed that turn, and they just have to take, hits of damage from at least your two opponents.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of damage that's coming in, and if they don't have a way to destroy that creature, then that's a good amount more. Like even if they then untap it next turn and leave it untapped, so it's available as a blocker, that's still one additional round of swings that are going to have come through towards them. So they'll block it and die, but they're going to take basically, even if you don't attack, they're going to take 3 swings if they don't have a way to remove it or prevent it if you put it on a tapped creature. That's really, really good, I think.
Yeah, and this is coming out of the main set. So when I saw this, and I immediately saw Commander card on this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be played any other way. And I really want to see this be played in a pot,
I do too,
just to see what kind of shenanigans are going to happen.
Because I feel like if you are clever and you use it right, or like put it on the indestructible creature, put it on the tapped creature, so they have to take a couple hits, it could really be game changing.
Yes, it could. And you don't, you're not going to get attacked at all by the other 2 players. Guarantee that player who you enchanted's coming for you though hard. Yeah. Like, oh, you want to play this game? Right.
Not only is it buying you, not only is it forcing damage onto somebody else, it's kind of buying you around where no one's attacking you. So you have 2 things going on. You are saving yourself from being swung at, and you're guaranteeing one of your opponents going to get hit. Yeah. It's a super cool card. Even if it wasn't, I think it's good. I think it's very good, and I really want to see them play. I just think it's also a really fun design.
Yeah, and I think Blue needed something like this where it pulled away from their whole, well, we're going to have flyers, we're going to draw a bazillion cards, and we're going to do all this. Why not give them something new to play with? Yeah,
and also, it is kind of new, but it's not super outside of the color pie. Siren's Call was way back in Alpha that forces opponents to attack. Bident of Thassa forces that. So Blue's had that stuff that forces people to attack before. So it's not even that far out of the color pie. It's just a fun design. Well, I have a blue card here I'm going to talk about too. I don't know if it's a fun design so much. I think it's just a hyper efficient spell, and that's an offer you can't refuse. It's an instant counterspell for a single blue mana, and it just says counter target non-creature spell, and its controller creates 2 treasure tokens.
Oh, this card is so bad in every other format but Commander.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Yeah. Because there's something, particularly like Standard or something, not creature spells are probably the scariest thing you're going to be dealing with for the most part. So it doesn't stop the thing you want to stop. In Commander, on the other hand, creature spells oftentimes tend to be the least scary thing you're dealing with. 2 treasure tokens is not that big of a deal in a slower format that has access to a gazillion mana.
Yep.
It's not quite like people were comparing it to calling it a worse Swan Song. It kind of is, I guess, but Swan Song is only artifacts, enchantments, instants, sorceries, and enchantments. This also hits artifacts. This also stops planeswalkers. So there's 2 additional card types it hits.
I think it's strictly better because I think giving them a 2/2, because the amount of decks that can play with sacrifice outlets can do other stuff like that with creatures. I mean, I think this is just better in general. I'd rather give someone 2 treasures that, so you get 2 extra mana. Okay, big whoop.
I mean, there's those situations where like you're playing a planeswalker deck or something, and you like giving them a 2/2 flyer that they can swing and hit your planeswalkers over the top of your blockers or whatever can be relevant, I guess. I'd run both. If I'm running, there's very few situations where I would choose one or the other. I would just pull something else. I just think it's a fantastic counterspell, especially in Commander. I do not if something's worth countering, because that's also one of the differences. In other formats, there's such a thing as like countering spells for tempo.
Yep.
That's not really a thing in Commander for the most part, at least where I play, at the power level I play at. I'm not making a trade because it's slightly beneficial to me. When I'm using a counterspell, it's to stop me from losing the game. It's to stop something really, really huge from coming down. I don't care if I'm giving you 2 treasures, if I'm stopping you from dropping that all is dust in your planeswalker deck or something, or your artifact deck where it wouldn't touch your stuff and it'd wipe everybody else's board. I don't care about 2 treasures then. I'm just going to counter the spell. There's just so much stuff in Commander where both the way you play and how relevant the mana is, it's just a fantastic counterspell.
Yeah, I pulled one in my pre-release kit, and I was like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is unplayable. And then I thought about it in Commander purposes, and I'm like, oh, this is highly playable.
This is super,
not in this format.
Max, you have 1 or 2 blue decks. Is this anything you're going to try out in, say, Brago?
Probably not, because I think I would rather run Swan Song.
Sure. I do think it probably depends too, like how many colors you're playing. 1 blue mana is a big deal if you're playing 3 color decks, for example, or 4 or 5. That's also a big deal. Or if you're me and you run a ton of utility lands that don't make colored mana in your 2 color deck, you might really like the ability to cast a counterspell for single blue mana too. So that's one of the reasons I also like it.
Yeah, I think it's good to run actually both of them. To
be
honest with you. I mean, the ability to just stop non-creature spells is just really good.
I've actually been, what I swapped out in almost all the decks where I'm going to put it in is I pulled out Negate. So hit the same thing. It's 1 less. So basically, I'm trading the ability to cast it for 1 less mana for giving them 2 treasures. And at least for me, because I don't play really draw go decks, so like if I'm saving counterspell mana, it's probably not going anywhere else. It's just because, okay, I've done something and I want to make sure I can protect it. So I'm going to leave 1 or 2 mana up. Being able to leave 1 mana up versus 2 mana up is worth giving 2 treasures for me.
Yeah. Supposedly, someone did a deep dive on that card too, and you can turn 1 infinite combo or something like that in Pioneer with that card, and it requires that and Mox Amber and something else into Omniscience into something, and I'm like, that's way too many cards to make this a good combo, but cool for finding it.
Yeah, the perfect magical Christmas land hand. All right, Max, let's go back to you. What's your second one here?
My next card is Giada, Font of Hope. This is a legendary creature, angel for 1 and a white. It's a 2/2. It has flying and vigilance. It taps for white mana, but you can only spend it on angel spells. Then it also says, each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. So, a little bit of a True Conviction-esque effect there, but just for angels. I like that it's a cheaply costed commander. It has flying, it has vigilance, and then it buffs the rest of your tribe of angels that you're probably running behind this commander, or quite possibly in a Dragon Lord Jamoka deck where I'm going to be playing it.
It's useful in a deck like that. It's useful in your Angel Tribal deck if you're playing, whatever combination of colors your Angel Tribal deck is, whether it's Boros under like Aurelia, or you're playing, say Sigarda in, green-white, or you're playing a black-white, whatever. Whatever your combo is, it's probably pretty good in that deck. However, as a mono-white Angel commander, like prior to this, people were probably for the most part playing Lyra Dawnbringer, flying First Strike Lifelink, and other angels get +1/+1 and have lifelink.
Yep.
That's perfectly fine. But Lyra's 5 mana, and that, for the most, like white doesn't ramp real well, so maybe you have an artifact out, but you're not getting your commander out until turn 5. And then also, there's some angels that cost 1 or 2 or 3 mana, but they're mostly kind of bad and don't do a whole lot. And in that kind of deck, you kind of want to be running just absolute heaters. So you're in colors that don't have a lot of ramp, and your commander kind of encourages you to just play big beats. That's a pretty easy deck to blow out. If someone like takes, an artifact, a Vandal Blast drops or something on turn, 4 or 5, and you lose those mana rocks or whatever, you're gonna be hurting. And the deck's super slow anyway. You're gonna have a tough time dealing with aggro. You're gonna have a tough time dealing with just anyone's kind of fast moving deck. Giada fixes a lot of that, I think. Your commander can come out on turn 2 and still do things. It's not like one of those commanders where you want to have things in play and play your commander. You can drop your commander and just then start dropping your angels right after them. Yes, you can run a bunch of beaters, but you can also run like Segovian Angel for 1 mana and play it on turn 3, and it's going to come into play, with a +1 counter on it then. So it's a 2/2 for 1 mana with flying and vigilance. You can run a bunch of those efficiently costed angels, and you could go deep instead of running like 15 or 16 or 17 big battle cruiser style angels in a Lyra deck. You could run 25 or 30 angels in this deck and go with a bunch of the efficiently costed ones, some of the ones we got back in Kaldheim, that kind of thing, and have them come into play as like 5/5s and 6/6s once you get to that point. That will also then make it easier to rebuild after a board wipe. You're not going to have to necessarily tap out every turn to play that 6-drop angel. You can hold up something in hand like for a Brought Back or a Faith's Reward or whatever to save your stuff if you need to, if someone board wipes. I just think, like, generally speaking, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility if you are someone who wants to build a mono white angel deck.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a real good pick, Max. I think it's a good card that just is going to do a lot of different stuff. I appreciate that design for sure. Chris, what's your next one here?
I'm still itching on that Halo fountain over here. I mean, I'm dead set that is still the best card, your best white card.
It's a super cool card. I ordered one for my Zero deck.
Yeah, I know a couple people pulled some full art ones, and I'm like, hey, you guys want to trade those? And like, I don't know. I'm like, please. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about, and this one's probably one that people are probably going to be, a little bit iffy on if they like it as much as I do, but it's called Structural Assault. For 3 colorless and double red, we got a sorcery that says destroy all artifacts. Yeah, that sounds kind of bad in mono red, right? Because red needs all those artifacts, their mana ramp. But then it also says when Structural Assault it deals damage to each creature equal to the number of artifacts that were put into the graveyard from the battlefield this turn. So not only does it destroy all artifacts, you're also getting a board wipe out of it, which I found really interesting on it. Because, you already have, a couple of the red ones that can destroy artifacts, so why not get both of them all in one package?
Where I think this will probably really, really shine is in like a Gruul deck, particularly if you're playing like one of the Gruul landfall kind of commanders. Because number one, you tend to not be running many artifacts. You're doing almost all of your ramp through lands. So you probably have a Soul Ring in there. Maybe you have a, Crucible of Worlds or like a few things that assist with your landfall. But like for the most part, those decks are just not running a ton of artifacts. I think my Mina and Den deck had 3. So you're not running a ton of artifacts. It basically is going to give you a board wipe that's also going to blow up everyone's artifacts. And it's going to not hurt you too badly. It's kind of combining a Vandal Blast in with a, Blasphemous Act or something.
Yeah, Chandra's Ignition or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The decks, I think that those kind of decks, it's going to be an absolute star.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting card in general.
Yeah, I think it'll be good in, quite a few decks. I mean, because the way I look at this card, you're going to take punishment as well.
Sure.
But it's going to be more of a late game type of card, where the mana rocks are not quite as valuable as they were in the beginning of the game type of thing. Not to mention with the set, we're getting all these new treasure makers, everything like that. So the amount of treasures on the field's probably going to change if people are playing those types of decks.
Mm-hmm.
So just having that extra, destroying treasures is going to add to that. So
yeah, fun card. And my next one here is from the actual commander decks. It's Mask of the Schemer, 2 and blue for an artifact equipment. It has a equip cost of 2. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, it connives X, where X is one of damage it dealt to that player. So you draw X cards and discard X cards, and then put a +1 counter on that creature for each non-land card discarded this way.
Super good mechanic.
Yeah. Now you're in blue, so you don't, blue tends to not be playing that much equipment stuff. I happen to have an Azorius equipment deck, but so I'm definitely running it there. But I think people will look at running this. It reminds me a little bit of Mask of Griselbrand, where it doesn't feel even so much like a equipment, you're running an equipment deck, but it's one that you run in, say your commander has hexproof or something, or you just have a big beater commander you're planning on swinging with a lot that happens to have blue in the colors. Maybe it's Ur-Dragon or something. You put this on your Ur-Dragon that's a 10/10. You tell me you don't want to filter down 10 cards and put 6 counters on your dragon, and then next time swing on a hit for 16 and filter down 16 cards? You're going to be in the right deck. You are going to be able to churn through your deck so quickly. I think this isn't the kind of thing I think you're just slapping in any old blue deck, but there's a lot of blue decks that have commanders with evasion and commanders that have pretty big bodies. And you're in blue, so it's number one, easy to protect your commander. You have counterspells, things like that, so you can keep from getting 2 for 1. And if you do once in a while, well, then you just re-equip it for 2. That's a pretty low price anyway. And hit somebody and dig way down deep and make your commander that much bigger, or the creature to dig that much deeper next time it hits. I think it's a fun, interesting design. It also feeds your graveyard if you're playing some kind of a zombie deck that you care about that. But it's a fun design, and I think in the right deck, people are going to play it, and it's going to create those, oh my god, that's disgusting. What just happened? You dug down 8 cards, and next turn you're going to dig down 12. It's just gross in the right deck. So I think it's a fun design, like I said, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in the right build where it just blows people out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably going to sleep on that card, though, too, because I've noticed in Commander, people have an issue with discarding cards out of their hand.
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm guilty of that myself, for sure.
Yeah, they think too much, about, well, what ifs with this, and it's like, well, no, right now you don't need it, so just throw it. Go down for what you need, and like you were saying, if you can filter 10 cards a turn, it doesn't matter what you're pitching. I mean, no one's going to catch up with you.
Yeah. Max, we'll go back to you. What's your next card here?
My next card is another vehicle from one of the commander decks, and this is Dodgy Jalopy.
What's it called?
A Dodgy Jalopy is what I'm going to go with.
What is it?
It's
what kind of vehicle is this?
It looks like a rhino, is what I would say. It looks like an SUV ready to go off-roading.
Oh boy, okay.
It's 2 and a green for a star 5 artifact vehicle. It has trample, and its power is equal to the highest mana value among creatures you control. It crews for 3, and then it also has scavenge for 2 and a green, which means you can exile the card from your graveyard, and then put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power on target creature, and you do it as a sorcery. Mono green has a lot of high mana value cards that I would run in a mono green stompy deck, so this would fit right into it in my opinion, along with the fact that you can get some extra use out of it by scavenging it and buffing your commander or another creature on the battlefield by, 5, 6, 7, depending on what else is on your battlefield. Is just great value in my opinion.
Is there any deck where you have plans for using this, Max?
I'm working on a mono green deck that might include this card.
Oh yeah, we talked about that the other day. I know what deck that is. I will save that surprise until you're ready to talk about it.
Gotcha.
All right, Dodgy Jalopy, Max, back-to-back vehicles.
Yeah.
I guess not back-to-back. You had Giada, but 2 of your 3 were vehicles.
Yep.
All right, Chris, what do you got for us here?
Well, I have a vehicle as well. I'll just throw this one out there since we're talking about vehicles. And this one comes out of the main set, and it's called Unlicensed Hearse. It's 2 colorless for a star vehicle that has tap, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. Unlicensed Hearse power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards exiled with it, and it has crew 2. The reason I chose this card is because we're always talking about abilities to exile cards from graveyards, and this one just can go into any deck. Allows you to tap and choose what cards you're exiling. So, you don't have to exile a whole graveyard out. You can just take out key pieces out of it. And you're getting a creature out of it. You can crew it. It could be a 12/12 by the time you end up crewing it and swinging in at the same time. So, I like the ability overall. I'm not sure if people are really going to crew it too often because they'll probably just be tapping it to exile cards that need to be gone out of graveyards. But I think that the ability is just priceless overall, and the ability to put it in any deck is huge.
Yeah, it's kind of like playing a Soul Guide Lantern or something, where you play this and you can just use it whenever you need to deal with stuff, and then late game you sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern to draw a card. In this case, late game you swing for 12, like you said.
Yep.
And
it just gives you another creature to start beating with.
And because vehicles aren't creatures until they get crewed, you can play this and use it the turn that it came into play. So you can drop it. It's just an artifact then once it comes into play. You can tap it, exile cards immediately. You don't have to wait to do that. And then if you choose to attack next turn, it already has 2 cards exiled.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a piece. It's functionally a piece of grave hate that can turn into a vehicle. At least that's how I look at it. It's grave hate that can turn into a vehicle later on when you need it.
Yeah, I am sad that it's a rare, but I understand why it is because, late game, it would be powerful, but I do believe Soul Guide Lantern was only an uncommon. The other one, I can't think of the other one-drop one that does something similar where the Relic is only an uncommon too. So, I was kind of disappointed, but hey, it is what it is.
And despite being a rare, I think right now, it's looking like it's about 70 cents on TCG Player. So it's a rare, but it's, not that much more than buying a Soul Guide Lantern. So it's still pretty affordable. Yeah, that's a really solid commander card for sure. My next one here, I was going to talk about Smuggler's Share, and I guess I will just briefly mention it because it's a really good card. Basically, a better monologue tax, kind of. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn, then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 more lands and the battlefield under their control this turn. What's interesting to say about it? It's just a really, 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 really good card in white.
Sometimes it'll do nothing for you, a couple turns, but every now and then it's going to do something.
Yeah. So instead, I want to talk about one that I think is maybe a little more interesting because I feel like Smuggler's Share, you're just going to run it in every mono white deck and probably plenty of decks that have access to white anyway. It's just that good. Especially in mono white, whereas I think Protection Racket is much more interesting. It's 2 and a black, so same cost as Smuggler's Share. It's also an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each opponent in turn order. Reveal the top card of your library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, you exile it. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So you're never going to get a land off this, unfortunately. People, every person for the most part, unless you've made some deal, is going to be like, no, I'll pay the 0 life to make that land go away. And, you probably don't want to run this in your deck that's like crazy efficient or something, because people will still probably pay the 1 or 2 or 3, the 2 or 3 life or the 1 life for your Soul Ring or whatever. But like, if you are playing the right kind of deck that has a lot of high value stuff, and I'm thinking of things like Jaleva that's looking to cast stuff off the top, or things like the Sphinx Yannette that wants to cast things for free off top that tends to run big things. You're looking at a deck. Yeah, you're looking at a deck where like you're going to be revealing, hey, you want to pay 7 life for this, and do you want to pay 6 life, and do you want to pay 4? People are just going to give you cards, and it's also one of those things like the later the game goes, the more likely people are going to let you keep that stuff. There's plenty of situations where this is going to just draw you. Probably early game you're going to get 1 card off it here or there. Later game you're going to get 2 or 3.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I want one now.
So Max, let's go back to you here. Anything you like for your final selection here?
I'm gonna be a villain here, and I'm gonna die on this hill.
I know exactly what you're gonna pick.
And I have officially found the best artifact in the entire set, which is Bootlegger's Stash. 5 in a green for an artifact that says lands you control have tap. Create a treasure token.
I want to know what went through their minds when they made this card. Like, seriously?
Green is the best color in Magic. That's all you need to know.
Who thought green needed this?
Me. I did. I did. I think green needed this. I think this is an amazing card. It's 6 mana, so in EDH that's like turn 4 if you're lucky. It's also an artifact. It's easily removed. Like, I don't think it's as big of a problem as people on the interwebs have complained about it. Do I think it's super powerful? Yes. Do I think green needed this in all reality? No. But it got printed, and I'm going to play it because it got printed, and it's amazing, and I can't wait to have a ton of these.
I mean, like, listen, it's been revealed now for 2 weeks, and I think we can finally, like, get real about it. Okay, someone on the design team really, really, really went deep on investing in Seedborn Muses. That's what they spec'd real hard, and they need some way to make that pay off. So here we go. You're gonna drop this in your Seedborn Muse and make a gazillion mana, or a gazillion treasure tokens. 6 mana is relatively fair, and if you don't have a Seedborn Muse, basically it kind of works a little bit like the god who lets you save mana, whose name just escapes me in Simic Color. Krufix. There we go.
Yeah, Krufix or Omnath does that too. Yeah,
where the mana doesn't go away till the phase ends or turn ends or something, or just stays your mana pool, I guess, in the case of Krufix. Kind of works like that. You're just going your lands that you don't use, you can tap to make a treasure and just kind of stockpile it. And yeah, if you've got a Seedborn Muse, you can abuse it, but like if you've got a Seedborn Muse out, you're going to abuse something. I think that's how Seedborn Muse kind of works. My biggest complaint was just like green didn't need this. Like this card would have been super cool in white for sure. I would love to have seen this in white. Like I feel like it's just overkill in green. I don't know why they're insistent on putting everything good in green, but it's super frustrating.
I also think that an issue is the fact this kind of screams like green Cyclonic Rift because it's just a single green pip. This can go in anything at this point.
Yeah.
So like, why didn't you make it like 4 green or 3 triple green? Make it like a True Conviction almost.
Sure.
And I think that would have made it a lot more fair as well. But the single green pip, we say that about Cyclonic Rift. The Overload has that single blue pip in it, so you put it everywhere. I think this is going to probably fall into that camp as well.
I think my only complaint with it, aside from it being in green, is the ability to just tap the land to create. I would have much preferred to see it be 1 colorless tap, so you have to tap 2 lands in order to create a treasure token, just to make it a little bit more balanced, in my opinion, so you're not like going overboard. Because I mean, if you rip this on turn 6, you already have like 10 lands out or something dumb in green, and you play this, then you're tapping for 4 right away. Then you tap them all again. If you have anything that's dealing with treasures or anything, I mean, I don't know. It caught me off guard when I first saw this card.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing to see in green, but it's also gonna be the greatest moment of Max's life in EDH when he drops it in the right moment and makes a gazillion treasure and gets to I can just hear the sound of his laughter.
And you can't do anything on my turn about it, so...
Right.
I know, that's a horrible part.
You are a monster.
Yes, I am.
All right, Chris, what's your next one here?
I got a couple of them I could talk about. So you want this to be my last one, or do you want to keep talking about
we can
it?
you can do two more. Why don't you do one
Okay.
more? Yeah, just do one here,
All
and
right.
we can come back to you.
So since we're already talking about treasure tokens, I'm gonna talk about a creature. It is called Professional Facebreaker.
Card's so
two
cool.
two colorless and a red for a human warrior that is a 2/3 with menace. And it reads, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Also has the ability of sacrifice a treasure, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Just fits everything that red does. The weird exile card to play it type of shenanigans. Has menace. It's not a huge, powerful creature by any means. It's not broken where it's like if each creature deals combat damage, you create a treasure token, and it's just one or more. So if you hit with 12 creatures, you're still only creating one. So it's not like overpowered, but I think this just fits in pretty much any deck that's looking for a little bit more oomph to it. And, I love this card overall because red needs any little bit of help they can get for card draw aspects. So just when I read this card, I immediately was like, yep, I need to get one of these. And I'm not sure where I'll play it quite yet, but I will play it in something.
I like that it has menace. I don't like that the caveat of no matter how many creatures you hit, you only get one treasure, but I kind of get that for standard purposes and probably limited purposes. But yeah, I kind of agree. This is a cool card. It gives you another reason to use treasures outside of using them for mana, which I always enjoy. So yeah, I kind of agree with Chris. This is a cool card, and I can see it being played in a lot of red decks.
Yeah, what is that? Is it Prosper, the one that creates treasures? Is that the one that I'm thinking of? Yeah. I mean, that it's going to fit right in that deck like it's no one's business.
And yeah, you're only making one treasure, but it is per player, so you can spread around the love a little bit and get a few more, up to 3, I guess, in a 4-player pod.
Yep.
In the right circumstances, that probably won't happen very often, but conceivably you can do it. Yeah, I'm putting this into my treasure deck. It's a real solid card, I think, in the right deck, and I'm definitely going to try it out for sure. Menace helps a lot too.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to talk about a removal spell here, which isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but in the commander decks, we got a card called Lethal Scheme. 2 black for an instant with Convoke, and it basically just says destroy target creature or planeswalker, and each creature that convoked Lethal Scheme connives, which is the mechanic where you draw a card, then discard a card, and if you discarded a non-land card, you put a +1 counter on that creature. If you're playing some kind of a black or, black/whatever deck that has a ton of creatures or, probably tokens, this is a crazy good card. I'm thinking something like Max's Regnan Krav deck that's super token heavy and also cares about +1 counters to a degree, a little bit at least. Tap 4 tokens you make because Convoke actually cares about or can pay for the pips on a spell as well.
Yep.
4 creatures means you can destroy a creature or planeswalker for 0 mana, and then you're going to dig down 4. So you're going to then filter down 4 cards and maybe put some counters on something as well. That's really, really good, I think, in a token deck. I'm not going to run it in my, Silumgar deck or something where I'd have to be tapping giant dragons. I don't want to tap those from like this. But I think in a black deck that has access to tokens, that is a really, really good removal spell.
Yeah, Convoke is such a good mechanic. I wish that they'd print it more on cards, but it seems like they're kind of leery about putting it, because they make really, really good ones, like Court of Calling and stuff like that. And then when they print it, they only print 1 or 2, and they're usually really, really good. So
yeah, this is just a super cool card, and I wish I had a black deck that it would play well in. I just don't have one that cares that has enough bodies where it's going to be useful. But yeah, super good card. Max, any more for you?
I have one more. It is Body Launderer. This is a creature for 2 and 2 black. It's a 3/3. It has Death Touch. And it says, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Body Launderer connives. And then when Body Launderer dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield. Any aristocrat deck will probably love this card, especially if you're not caring about tokens. I know there's a lot of things in my Regnan Krav deck that I like to sacrifice that aren't tokens, so I'm probably going to give it a shot in that deck, especially because overall it'll let me return something later in the game.
I like this card a lot. I'm going to try it out on my Glissa Death Touch deck, but it's also just a good card. Being able to, the connive ability is super, super useful. I wish it worked on tokens, but that would probably be too much. But yeah, so something of yours just dies, you're going to get a little bit of a little bit of value on it, just accidentally requiring no work on your part. You're just going to get the connive out of it. And when it dies, you get to bring something back from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's really, really solid. So it's also, by default, Body Launderer is a 3/3, and the thing you bring back is equal or lesser power. But when another creature you control dies, because of, the connive effect, you could conceivably, just using the connive alone, have Body Launderer up to a 4 or 5 or 6 or something, let alone whatever, maybe your deck has anthems or something that makes it even bigger. So, yes, you're bringing back something 3 or less by base, but along the way, it's very easy, either through other means or the things just baked into Body Launderer, to make that creature bigger to bring stuff back. Chris, what's your last pick here we're going to talk about?
This is probably my favorite card that I've seen so far, that really spoke to me, and I already know it's probably been hyped a lot because it is the buy box promo, and that is Jaxus the Troublemaker. Jaxus is a legendary human warrior for 3 colorless and a red, and it is a 2/3. It has an ability with 1 red, tap it, discard a card. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Then you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. This card also has Blitz, which I'm loving the Blitz mechanic. Blitz reads, you pay this ability's cost. You can cast this card for the Blitz cost, and it gains haste. And it also gains when this creature dies, draw a card. But you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So you're guaranteed to draw a card unless, something wild happens, someone paths it or something. But you're going to draw a card, and you get a hasty creature. The reason I like this card is it's very similar to... I talked about the Path, or was it Path of Mirror Breaker or something like that, or whatever the one was out of Kamigawa that was another Kiki Jiki. And they've been printing a couple cards like this that copy cards, create a copy token of it in red, but are not broken like Kiki Jiki is. And that's what I've been liking about that. And this one actually gives you value for creating the token or whatever out of it. Because you're going to get to draw a card, plus you're getting the ability off the card, and that card has haste, so either way, you're just going to swing willy-nilly with it. Now, for me, this is going right in my Alesha deck, because I play all these ETB creatures, and Jaxus is reanimatable by Alesha, so I'm just like, yes, give me more.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm putting it into my Anax deck for sure as well. A red creature does things I want. It's got a little bit of card draw into it. Make a copy of something else. Yeah, it just does all of the things you want. The fact that the creature, when it dies, draws you a card, and it's going to die to a sacrifice every time is super, super useful. I love that.
Yeah. I like it because you're discarding a card to begin with, so I'm like, fuel my graveyard just for more reanimating effects.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, in my case, I don't have much in that mono red deck. I'm not reanimating much, but there's so many times I have multiple lands in my hand that I don't need, like pitch a land, something that just isn't useful right now. Yeah, make a copy of something that's in play and is useful, and it's going to draw me a card. Super, super good.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I know it's been talked about a lot, but I think it is probably my favorite card out of the set so far.
Nice. Well, my last one here is also red, Glittering Stockpile.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yep. It's an artifact treasure, and you can tap it and make a red mana. So it's a I guess worst case, it's a manalith that only makes red. But when you tap it, it also puts a stash counter on it. And then you can also have the option to sacrifice it and add X mana of any one color, where X is number of stash counters on Glittering Stockpile. So if you drop this on turn 3 as your mana rock and just start using it, and there's no reason to not use it just to burn it immediately. Like if you don't have something to use red mana on, every turn you're going to want to tap Glittering Stockpile. By turn 6 or 7, there's going to be 4 or 5 counters on it. And let alone turn 8 or 10 or whatever, when then you can sacrifice it and get how much mana? That's insane. And if you have proliferate effects or something going on in your red deck, because you're, say, playing some kind of a Super Friends deck with red, or you're doing something that just cares about counter, so you already have proliferate stuff, it's just that much better. But even if you it's crazy in those decks. But even if you're not doing that kind of stuff, just having a mana rock that you can crack after it's been out for 4 or 5 turns to add 4 or 5 mana is going to be bonkers in a lot of different builds. And I think I'm putting it in 3 different decks. It's just really, really useful.
Yeah, I might put it in a deck too. I'm actually looking up a card right now, if I can type right, that's very similar to it. Where is it? Nope, that's not the one I was thinking of.
We used to have the mana batteries cycle that we got back, and I want to say they were from Legends, that tapped for a mana, or you could tap them and put a charge counter on them.
Yes.
But you couldn't like number one, that they cost 4, this is only 3, and you had to choose, whereas these put the charge counter on it while you get the mana.
Yeah, there was a land that did it too. There's a red one. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, where you could put like storage counters on it, and then you can sacrifice it later for the amount of storage counters to put that much red mana into your mana pool. So very similar concept. I like how they're creating cards like that that give you the option of doing 2 things.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, even if you are not using it, for the sacrifice ability, it's just going to coincidentally just get the storage counters on it or whatever the special counters are for it. And then late game, just bloop, hello.
Yeah. Super, super cool card. I like it a lot. And once again, they've been really doing great work the last 2 years or so with these 3 mana rocks, making them be really playable. I went from not running, I don't think, anything besides, I think I Commander Sphere in 1 or 2 decks. I've got one of these 3 mana rocks in almost all of my decks, whether it's this or Cursed Mirror or Midnight Clock. They've just been really nailing it with these for sure the last few years.
Yes.
All right. Well, those
question before we go too far, Dana, with this card. It is an artifact treasure. Does that do anything?
I don't think it really does. There's some stuff that might counter care about treasures, but I don't think so. I think that's just kind of flavor because it gets sacrificed. I don't think it's relevant, at least right now.
Because I think all cards read treasure token.
Yeah.
I think is what the cards read off of, but I'm not sure. I'd have to actually look up.
Well, I know that Revel in Riches only says it checks for treasures, not treasure tokens, so this would probably count towards that if you run it in like a Rakdos deck.
Sure.
Okay, I was curious about that because, if that's a thing going forward, maybe there will be more Revel in Riches-esque cards where it's like, if you have so many treasures, this kind of thing can happen and whatnot.
One we got also in these commander decks is Reign of Riches as an enchantment. When it ETBs, you create 2 treasure tokens, but it says the first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure was spent to cast has Cascade. So if you use this with Reign of Riches out just for the mana, because it says with mana from a treasure, and this is a treasure, it gives stuff Cascade.
Okay.
So there's a few situations where that is definitely relevant for sure. So yeah. Good catch, Chris. All right, I think that is going to wrap up our discussion of the cards we thought were super interesting from Streets of New Capenna. But we'd like to hear what cards you guys out there in listener land found to be interesting as well. There's a lot of cool stuff here. So yeah, reach out to us and let us know what you liked. I am Dana. You can find me on the Twitter birds at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. Our show is edited by Rafael Garcia, and you can find them on the Twitter birds at Ursa Bearwalker. And our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin McLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. We will be back next week with a new show. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.